A community begins to fail the moment people stop asking why they live together at all. Welcome to another story in the series From Wonder to Power, The Journey of Thought. Today I want to show you how Aristotle moves beyond individual virtue and asks a harder, more exposed question. What kind of life is possible only with others? After ethics, something remains unfinished. A person may form good character, judge well, and act with balance, yet still live badly if the surrounding world pulls in the opposite direction. Aristotle sees this clearly. Humans are not complete in isolation. Speech, judgment, and virtue all unfold in shared space. The city is not an accident of convenience, it is the condition that makes a fully human life possible. Politics for Aristotle is not the struggle for power, it is the architecture of living together. Laws shape habits, institutions train judgment, shared practices give virtue somewhere to exist. A city that rewards excess deforms character. A city that honors balance makes goodness easier to sustain. At the same time, Aristotle introduces something quieter but just as decisive: friendship. Not sentiment, not private affection, but the bond that holds communities together. Without friendship, law becomes force. With it, order becomes cooperation. This episode begins where ethics turns outward, from the individual to the polis, from character to relationship, from living well alone to living well together. Just after dawn at the city gate, Polycrates waits with others as officials sort out a minor dispute over access to shared land. No one questions whether the issue should be decided together. The only question is how. Voices rise, reasons are exchanged, tempers flare and then settle. What strikes Polycrates is something ordinary yet decisive. Even disagreement assumes belonging. No one suggests walking away to settle the matter alone. Separation never appears as an option. Later, walking with his students, Aristotle points to scenes like this. Human beings, he explains, do not simply live in communities, they are formed by them. Speech, judgment, law, and shared ideas of justice arise only where people live together over time. A solitary human might survive, but would not flourish. To call the human being a political animal is not to reduce life to offices or power. It is to recognize that rational life unfolds through common deliberation about what is good and just. Aristotle contrasts this with households and herds. Animals gather for safety or reproduction. Humans gather to live well. The city exists not merely to prevent harm, but to cultivate virtue. Laws educate desire, customs shape habit, shared practices form character. Outside the city, Aristotle says, a person is either less than human or more than human, a beast or a god. Ordinary human excellence lives in between, sustained by institutions, friendships, and mutual recognition. Seen from above, this view reshapes politics itself. It is not an artificial contract imposed on otherwise complete individuals. Individuals become complete through political life. Reason develops socially through language, correction, and example. The city is not a necessary evil restraining private good. It is the environment in which private good becomes intelligible at all. As Polycrates leaves the gate, the dispute unresolved but ongoing, he feels neither oppressed nor elevated. He feels involved. His voice matters because others listen, and others matter because he must answer them. Daily life follows familiar paths as Euphranor moves between home, workshop, and assembly. His conduct shifts slightly with each place. He speaks more carefully in public, shows patience with neighbors, restrains anger in disputes that will return tomorrow. None of this feels heroic. It feels necessary. Living among the same people, under shared laws and expectations, shapes how he acts long before he stops to think about it well. Aristotle draws attention to this ordinary pressure. Virtue, he explains, does not grow in isolation. A solitary person may have good intentions, but without contact they remain untested. Courage appears only where danger is shared. Justice appears only where claims collide. Generosity appears only where others can receive. Community supplies the situations that call virtues into being, and the response that corrects excess and deficiency. Outside common life, character stays theoretical. He adds that laws and customs do more than block wrongdoing. They educate desire. Repeated participation in fair exchange, shared sacrifice, and public deliberation trains citizens to care about more than private gain. Virtue becomes easier when it is expected, noticed, and returned. A city that honors courage produces courageous people. One that rewards cunning produces something else. Moral development, Aristotle insists, cannot be separated from the moral environment in which it happens. Seen from above, the implication is clear. Virtue is not a private possession achieved once and kept forever. It is a relational achievement, sustained by practices, institutions, and friendships. Community does not guarantee goodness, but without it, goodness lacks the conditions to stabilize. The polis works like soil. Poor soil twists growth. Good soil supports it. Ethics cannot be detached from politics because character is always formed somewhere. As Euphranor ends his day among familiar faces, he senses how much his better actions depend on the life he shares. Expectations steady him. Relationships remind him who he is trying to become. In this vision, Aristotle corrects moral individualism. Virtue does not arise against society, but within it, growing where common life both demands and supports living well. Evening settles around a simple table where Lysandros shares a meal with an old friend known since youth. There is no performance, no calculation. Conversation moves easily from work to family to small disagreements that no longer threaten the bond between them. Lysandros notices something quietly decisive. In his friend's presence, his thoughts sharpen, his excesses soften, and his better intentions hold more firmly. Alone, he manages life. Together, it becomes steadier and richer. Aristotle treats scenes like this as central, not sentimental. Friendship, he explains, is not an extra added to an already complete life. It is one of the conditions that make life complete at all. A person may possess virtue, wealth, and honor, yet without friends, these goods remain inactive. Friendship offers recognition, correction, and shared activity. One sees oneself more clearly through another who wishes one well. The good life is not simply lived by someone, but with someone. He distinguishes between kinds of friendship. Some are based on use, others on pleasure. They last only while the benefit lasts. The highest form is friendship of character, where each values the other for who they are. These bonds are rare and slow because they require virtue on both sides. Yet only here does friendship show its full strength. Friends become partners in living well, supporting one another's moral growth over time. Seen from above, the claim runs deep. Friendship mirrors virtue itself. It demands habit, trust, shared judgment, and time. It cannot be replaced by law or enforced by duty. Through friendship, ethics leaves abstraction behind. One no longer asks only what is good in general, but what is good for us, here and now. Friendship gives ethical life a human face. As the meal ends, Lysandros walks home unhurried. The day's difficulties feel lighter, not because they are gone, but because they were shared. His life has not changed in outline, yet it feels more whole. In this insight, Aristotle anchors the good life in relation rather than solitude. Friendship becomes the ground in which virtue takes root, grows, and endures. By the end of this chapter, the good life no longer appears as a private achievement measured from the inside. It appears as something sustained between people. What Aristotle gains here is a social foundation for ethics. Virtue does not float above life, and it does not survive on inner resolve alone. It is formed, tested, and stabilized in shared practices, institutions, and friendships. The city provides structure. Friendship provides warmth. Together, they turn moral intention into lived reliability. Ethics becomes durable because it is distributed, carried not by isolated individuals, but by networks of recognition and care. Well, what is lost is the fantasy of self-sufficiency. No one becomes good alone. Character requires response, correction, and shared judgment. Law without friendship becomes coercion. Friendship without law dissolves into favor. Aristotle holds them together, showing that community is not a threat to virtue, but its natural habitat. With this move, philosophy completes a long turn. Wonder becomes order. Order becomes practice. Practice becomes shared life. Power now appears not as domination, but as the ability of a community to sustain the conditions for living well together. In the next chapter, this classical balance will be tested. As empires expand and traditions collide, the question will no longer be how to live well in a city, but how to live at all in a fractured world. Across the courtyard of the Lyceum, Aristotle listens as students compare cities they have seen. One praises Sparta for discipline, another condemns it for cruelty. Someone admires the freedom of Athens, someone else points to its instability. Aristotle lets the arguments run their course. When the voices fade, he asks a quieter question. What is each constitution trying to achieve? Without knowing the end, he insists, judgment has no ground. He explains that constitutions are not defined simply by how many rule, but by whose good they serve. Rule by one becomes kingship when it aims at the common good, tyranny when it serves private interest. Rule by few becomes aristocracy when guided by virtue, oligarchy when driven by wealth. Rule by many becomes polity when ordered by law, democracy in a degraded sense when appetite replaces judgment. The same structure can be just or corrupt, depending on its orientation. Names alone explain nothing. Evaluation demands ethical criteria. Nearby, Philinos struggles with this. He has been taught to defend one system against all others. Aristotle unsettles that loyalty. No constitution, he argues, is best in abstraction. Each must be judged in relation to the character, habits, and circumstances of its people. Laws that stabilize one city may destroy another. Political wisdom, therefore, values durability as much as purity. The best constitution is often not the most elevated, but the one most likely to endure while supporting virtue. Seen from above, the realism of this approach becomes clear. Aristotle does not design ideal states removed from human limits. He studies real constitutions, compares their strengths and failures, and examines how power, class, and education interact. Politics becomes both empirical and ethical. Norms without observation turn into fantasy. Observation without norms slides into cynicism. Judgment holds the two together. As the discussion ends, Philinos understands that political wisdom requires patience. Choosing a constitution is not an act of faith, but of informed judgment. No system saves a city by itself. Character, law, and circumstance must align. In this balance, Aristotle offers a lasting lesson. Constitutions are tools, not idols, and their value lies in how well they sustain justice, stability, and the possibility of living well together. By the end of this chapter, politics no longer appears as a technical problem of power. It appears as an extension of ethics into shared life. What Aristotle gains here is grounding. Community is not built on ideals alone, nor held together by force. It rests on character, shaped by habit, law, shaped by reason, and friendship that makes obedience humane. Constitutions matter, but they are instruments, not solutions. Stability without justice hardens. Justice without stability dissolves. Politics becomes the art of holding human limits and human aspirations together. What is lost is innocence. There is no perfect system waiting to be applied. No form of rule guarantees virtue by itself. Aristotle abandons the hope that structure alone can save a city. He replaces it with something slower and more demanding: attention to circumstance, care for balance, acceptance that living well together is always provisional. With this move, philosophy completes another turn, from the soul to the city, from private excellence to shared conditions. Power now appears not as domination, but as the capacity of a community to sustain the habits and relationships that make virtue possible. In the next chapter, this balance is tested directly. Plato and Aristotle will face each other without mediation. Idea against form of life. Assent against practice. Vision against organization. The question will no longer be how to live well, but how philosophy itself should live in the world.